slams Minister Hines over missing ammo. Judge orders restart of police promotion process. Savannah vendor booths completed for Carnival. And Central Police arrest 5 in SOE operations. Now for the details. The National Transformation Alliance is criticizing National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines for his silence on the disappearance of 25,000 rounds of ammunition from the Defense Force. In a statement, the NTA called for an external audit, stressing that the missing rounds could create public panic and damage the Defense Force's reputation. The group, led by former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith, says the public deserves answers on whether the situation is an administrative error or a serious security breach. A High Court judge has ruled that the police service must restart its promotion process for inspectors advancing to Assistant Superintendent of Police, calling it fundamentally flawed. Justice Frank C. Prasad highlighted severe breaches, blaming suspended Commissioner of Police Earler Edward Christopher. Criminologist Professor Ramesh Diosarine says Prime Minister-designate Stuart Young must prioritize reforms, warning that without urgent changes, the police service could face further administrative and operational collapse. The vendor booths at the Queen's Park Savannah, Port of Spain are now ready. Carnival Entrepreneurs Association President David Batiste confirmed their completion with only minor finishing touches remaining. Vendors will have full access to their booths by February 20th, ensuring they are prepared for the Carnival season. 5 suspects have been arrested in state of emergency operations by Central Division Police. Officers seized drugs, ammunition, and counterfeit U.S. currency. One suspect was wanted for multiple offenses and had provided a false identity. In a separate operation, police arrested a suspect linked to the theft of $64,000 from a parked vehicle in Chaguanas. Authorities also detained 2 individuals for drug possession. Investigations are ongoing. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say, we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
It is smooth. Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe with different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
You'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement. If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg,
control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put
Why
forever.
you want the chiefs to lose so? Why you want the chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of this game.
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
WESN.
Hello there, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you for joining us this morning for this edition of the program. Getting straight into the conversation, what is quite surprising, that is, there were two union leaders in their respective rights have been selected by the United National Congress under the coalition of interest, which sees trade union movements as well as other political parties join the United National Congress in the road to the general election 2025. Those two union leaders are now contesting seats on behalf of the United National Congress. In fact, such union leader has joined me many a times on the program this morning, but I think at this point it's best to refer to them as the candidate for Labrie rather than a union leader. That's a whole other story in itself, of which we will address later on. But the United National Congress candidate for Labrie joins us this morning. Clyde Elder is with us. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Shan. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm glad you made the correction in terms of union leader. As of November 2023, I ceased to be the leader of the CW. I am an independent person. I'm on my own. I'm not affiliated with the union. And in fact, the union has their own position and always had in terms of being independent of any political party. So, yes, I am the USC candidate for that.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Elder, for that note. But still quite an interesting shift, and not one that was expected by many. What has led to this development in your candidacy for the United National Congress for the seat of Labrie?
Yes, well, as you just articulated, the UNC, along with many other interest groups, has formed a coalition of interests. And the labor movement, of course, not the entire movement, some key unions are involved in that coalition of interests. And as part of that coalition of interests, myself and Comrade Ernesto Kiza, we were asked to contest the Labrie seat and the Point Fortin seat respectively. And we have accepted that challenge. We have accepted that request. And that's why we are here contesting on a UNC ticket to bring those seats home.
But have you ever saw yourself in representative politics? Have you ever seen yourself in a political role?
Well, you see, once you represent people, and I represented people for most of my working life as a union officer, and once you represent people, and even if you step away from one form of representation, it's an easy or natural transition into another form of representation. It may be active politics, it may be community activism, it may be something. But once you represent people and you enjoy doing it, and you have a passion for doing it as I do, then something like this, in terms of serving and stepping up even higher, in terms of more persons being served, the country being served, rather than just one aspect or one sector of working class, then it's something that you welcome and that you, at some point in time, you'll see yourself doing once you're serious about serving people, which I am.
Though I understand that, is it an opportunity to serve, or has the United National Congress always been, in your opinion, the best vehicle to lead towards serving others in a more representative position?
Yes, as I articulated before, UNC, like all parties, they are not a perfect party, but at this point in time, UNC is in fact the best vehicle to take us into government. And see, I'll tell you why. When you look at what has been happening with this PNM government under the last 10 years, You look at workers, how they have been affected. Workers of Carney Green, they have been sent home. Workers of TDC have been sent home. Workers of Government Human Resource Services Limited have been sent home. Those companies are closed down, by the way. Workers of ArcelorMittal sent home, and nothing been done by the government to protect those workers' interests. Workers of Petrotrin sent home. Workers of Trinma sent home. Workers of TSTT, myself included, sent home in 2018. Workers in TSTT sent home again in 2022. They said that, look, we have no money, we can't offer you all more than 4%. Well, what has happened since then? Since then, they have accepted ridiculous increases in their salary with humongous back pay, and it's good for them, but it's not good for us. No, that's on the trade union side. On the candidate for Labre side, when you look at the constituency of Labre has the Pitch Lake. It's well known for the Pitch Lake. It's world renowned for the Pitch Lake. We have many, many, many oil wells and rich in resources. But if I ask anybody to point out one key element or building or something that is for the people in Labre, that the people can say, this is ours because of the resources we have contributed to the economy, this is ours. But maybe apart from the Labitco estate, there's nothing else they could say, because there's nothing else that exists in the Labre constituency, even though Labre has been under the PNM for forever, except for maybe one term. But I think it's time for a change. The people feel that it's time for a change, and I believe we can make that difference.
The thing is, Mr. Elder, is it the feelings of the PNM that you're campaigning on, or the promises of the UNC?
Well, it's neither. Let me just say that, right? Because I have been given no promises by the UNC. And of course, the PNM is, in fact, on record for the people to see as not being for the people. And if I go back to Labre again, there are depressed areas in Labre, and nobody from the PNM seems to care. I could talk about Carapal, I could talk about Palo Seco, I could talk about areas in Santa Flora, I could talk about areas in Quarry Village, I could talk about areas in Rosila, I could talk about areas in Grand Trace. I could go on and on about depressed areas in Labre that PNM has not paid attention to over the years. And because of this coalition of interests, we have been asked to serve and called up to serve. And we have accepted that call with open arms to make that difference in this country. So it's not a matter about feelings of the PNM or promises of the UNC. It's a matter of ensuring that we get betterment for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and in this case, for the constituents of Labre.
Well, Mr. Elder, I hear you, and I could appreciate your position. The unfortunate thing is not everyone in TNT might accept that or even understand that. In fact, the thing is, you now put yourself in a position where you will be labeled UNC for the rest of your life. The thing is, how does the interests of the UNC or the philosophy of the UNC align with you, align with Clyde Elder and what he believes in?
Yes. So I accept that, once you put yourself out for active politics, even though there's a coalition of interests and you go under the Labour banner, so to speak, as a UNC candidate, it matters not in people's mind, because at the end of the day, you have put on that UNC a T-shirt, you have put on that UNC symbol, and you are UNC. I accept that. And I have no difficulty with that at all, because I'll tell you why. There's a workers' agenda. And we cannot hide the fact that I am from the labor movement. I've represented workers all my life. So there's a workers' agenda. And the only party that has signaled and have said and have signed on to that workers' agenda and have indicated, look, we are about ensuring workers' progress and workers' development is the UNC. And if for no other reason, but for that reason alone, even though there are more reasons, but for that reason alone, we will align to the UNC, then we'll do that. Because if you look at what the PNM has done over the last 10 years alone, not even 10 years, let's look at the 5 years. They have decimated the OWQ. They have decimated, or attempted to decimate, I should say, the OWQ, the CW. They're going after the PSC. They're going after the port and waterfront areas in terms of looking to target the SWWTU now. They have gone after almost every union that has showed some kind of strength and power in representing workers. That is PNM's history. And if that is PNM's history, and that is not something certainly that aligns with my philosophy, and UNC have said, look, listen, we are going to do what we can do for the people, not just for labor, but for the people, then that is my philosophy. Once you are interested in developing the people, that is my philosophy. And PNM is not that vehicle. UNC have indicated clearly that they are on board with that. And therefore, if that is what the UNC is prepared to not be on board with that, then that is our philosophy. That's how that aligns with Clyde Elder's philosophy.
Please enlighten me, educate me on this workers' agenda, because I myself am not entirely sure exactly what it is.
The workers' agenda primarily includes, but is not limited to, issues such as revamping of the labor laws. So, for example, we have a number of different labor legislation in this country that has need changing for years. The Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act, for example. If you get retrenched now, Keaton, from your place of employment, you only get 2 weeks pay for the first 4 years that you work. 2 weeks pay, and after that you get 3 weeks pay. That needs changing. The IRA, as good as it was written when it was written, it also needs changing and updating. Additionally, workers need to get a living wage. So this 4% that government has been mandated to put on workers, that is not a living wage. So we are not saying that we must get exorbitant increases of 100% plus. We're not saying that. We are saying we should get a living wage. And all that is part of the workers' agenda. The workers' agenda also includes putting workers at the heart of development. So if you want the country to progress, then you need workers to build it. Because without the workers putting their shoulders to the wheel, it can't be done. So once you put workers at the heart of development, which is part of the workers' agenda as well, then it is going to help the country progress. And the only party that said, look, listen, we're on board with that is the UNC. And of course, there's a whole document of it, Keaton, and we can share it with you at some other point in time. But I just want to indicate that the workers' agenda concentrates on the interests of workers in the development of the country, not just workers' interests in isolation, but in the development of the country as a whole.
In relation to yourself, I'm listening to you this morning, and again, I am stressing the point that you are a former union leader. You would still be referred to as a former union leader.
Yes, that can be
in respect to all the reports. But you stated, you said, you know, it's since late 2023, I have not been involved actively in leadership of a union, and that's understood. But Mr. Elder, how is it that you're going to navigate separating the union leader from now a political candidate? How are you going to present yourself as compared to what people already know you for and what people already see you as for being?
Well, you see, Keaton, it's not a matter of navigating and separating myself from. You see, people know me as a union leader, and they know me to be represented workers with vigor, with passion, with pride, and victoriously as well. So if I've done that for workers in a particular industry, a particular area, imagine what I can do for the people. Now, I cannot help it that the history is I'm a union leader. That's history. You can't change history. And people will associate my face with, well, you were the one fighting for TSCT workers and for Hilton workers and for workers in this waste disposal company with the vaccine thing, and you were the one who were out there championing those causes. I can't have that. They recall that. That's what it is. That's my history. Yes? Am I doing what I'm doing in my political life as a labor leader? The answer is no. The Communication Workers Union, of which I came from, always had a position, and they have maintained their position, that they remain independent of all political parties. I see the Secretary General put out a release, and I respect that release. I, in fact, endorse the release because that is the union's position. The union has to adopt that position. But that position is not now confined to me. I, as an individual who have a passion to serve and a drive to see not just Labre improve, but to see the country improve, I am saying to this country, well, you know me, you know what I stand for. It is a fact I'm a trade union leader of the past. That cannot be changed. But that is what, in fact, has propelled me into this arena and has shown Trinidad and Tobago, look, you see, this man is a man who cares, this man is a man who understands, and this man is a man who will work with pride, with passion, with determination, and will represent us properly.
I'll tell you what, let's try and be a bit more fair to you this morning in respect to your candidacy. Yeah, a bit more fair in the sense that let's understand Clyde Elder in respect to his candidacy for Labrie, and
Yes.
focus on that. That is what it is at this time. So,
Yes.
you know, in that
Yes.
regards, what is your vision for Labrie? I mean, why do you seek to represent the people of the constituency of Labrie? What are your plans for
Good
the
question.
area?
Good question. So let me just say this. In terms of my connection to Labrie, why Labrie? Why Clyde Elder? Why Labrie and Clyde Elder? And you know, before I answer that, I saw many critics saying, so wait now, so you mean to say the UNC couldn't give Labour a safe seat? Labour could negotiate Faizabad, Labour can get maybe point up here. Well, I hear that. But you see, let me tell you things about the two candidates for the UNC for Point Fortin and Labrie. We are from that area. That's where we're born, that's where we grew up, that's where we have connection to. The people of Labrie I have connection to. I was grown up in a small village in Erin called Carapal, one of the depressed communities of Labrie, but mind you. So when people think Labrie, they think about just Labrie proper, but Labrie is not Labrie proper. Labrie it extends all the way down to Erin, comes up to Quarry Village, borders with Faizabad, borders with Siparia constituencies, goes down and of course borders with Point Fortin and goes all the way to the sea in the Gulf of Paria, at least on the Labitco side in that area there. So all that is Labrie. I am from the community of Labrie. What is my vision for Labrie? Well, look at it. When you look at it, we used to have a petrotrain, no longer have a petrotrain. There's no sporting facilities, so of course, they're trying to rebuild the Paloseco Velodrome. I'm going to indicate that. But apart from the Paloseco Velodrome that there's no longer any sporting facility that the people of Labrie, whether you in Rosilac, whether you're in Grand Trace, whether you're in Labrie proper, whether you're in Paloseco, Erin, Quarry, Santa Flora, there's no sporting facility that is so developed that the youths in the community can come and say, well, look, this is what we have, this is what we go to entertain ourselves, to pass time, to keep away from crime. And of course, there's the issue of crime as well. So I want to change that. I want to ensure that Labrie gets something that the youth can look forward to in terms of sports. Additionally, unemployment is high, and it shouldn't be. Because when you look at the land space in Labrie, there's so much land in that area that you could do so many things such as agriculture. You could develop agriculture. We talk about diversity economy all the time. And the unique thing about Labrie is Labrie has so much land space that can be used for all kinds of things, not just the production of oil and asphalt, which is rich, which is helping this country to develop, and which we are not benefiting from. But we could diversify the economy in terms of increasing and improving agriculture in the area. There's land for it. So you have mega farms in different parts of the country except Labrie. Why doesn't Labrie have a mega farm? To improve not just the food resource, but to also improve the employment opportunities for the people of Labrie.
Are the lands in Labrie arable lands where they can be used for crop culture?
Of course it is. The people of Lucero, they have been cultivating crops for many years successfully. Yes, I have family. I have an uncle and an aunt. Well, my uncle has died now. They have cultivated pumpkin in Lucero in huge amounts for many years. He was known as the pumpkin man. So yes, the land in Labrie is arable land, because the thing is, Ethan, and what you just said there signals to me that that's the perception of the general population of Trinidad that Labrie is only oil and gas and asphalt, and therefore nothing could grow in Labrie. That is so far from the truth. And I want to change that perception of Labrie, because Labrie is more than that. Labrie is an area that has helped to build this country. The asphalt, the oil that is taken to develop Port of Spain and other areas outside of Labrie is not used for Labrie. And I'm saying that the people of Labrie must be able to say, because I am from Labrie, because I live in those areas, those depressed areas in Labrie, I could now look towards Clyde Elder and UNC to help us develop, help us move out from this kind of life that we live in and get a better life. One more example. Let me give you one more example. There are areas in Labrie where people live that does not have electricity or running water. No fault of their own, but they were just thought of not good enough to have it at this point in time. When I grew up, Keaton, where I grew up, and one of the success stories about me is this. In Carapal, you had no phone service, you have no electricity, you had no water. There was a spring we used to get water from and hope rainfall so that we don't have to go by the spring to use a box cart to bring water from the spring. That was my life. That was my life story. When I studied, I didn't study to go to school by electricity as I have now all these lights. I asked you how the lighting was earlier, and the lighting was great. I didn't have that. I used to have a picture lamp that I will light in the night, and people will pass in the road and see the light on, and they'll know I'm studying because the light was on outside in the living room. So we had to go and get water from the spring. I had to use a picture lamp. Right now, even as I speak, there are people in Carapal who still do not have access to Tiantec electricity. Now, I may sound passionate about that area because that's
why is that the case, though? Is there understanding as to why that is the case?
But when you see, that is the case because this PNM government has not sought to develop those areas and has focused on just ensuring that people say, great is the PNM because my mother and father was PNM, and after they vote them in, nobody has decided to represent the people powerfully and effectively. Nobody. Not just this current candidate, by the way. It has a history of bad representation or no representation at all by the PNM candidates in Labray that has not developed Labray to the point where it should be based on its importance and its contribution to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So you can't tell me that Labray produces all that wealth and you still cannot find a way to go into every nook and cranny where somebody lives and give them phone, lights, and water. There's no excuse for that, Keaton. There's no excuse for that. None. Especially in the century that we live in, where a phone is commonplace to everybody with internet access, by the way. That is not the story, and that is not the experience of the people of the depressed communities in Labray. That is not what they experience. And I can tell you that when I visit my mom, I often do visit my relatives and my mom down in Deep South, Palo Seco, Erin, well, they're from Carapal. I often visit them. And there, if somebody tries to call me, they're not going to get one to me because there's no cell service in there. You understand? Now, why is that? Why hasn't the government seen it fit, to develop infrastructure in Labray? Look at the roads in Labray. Labray have one of the worst set of roads they have in this country. And they have the resources and the material to fix road. Imagine that. Why is that? There can be no excuse for that. So no PNM government, no PNM representative could come and tell me that there's a reason why that is so. The reason that is so is because they have failed the people of Labray, and they continue to fail the people of Labray. I am saying that I am coming to make a difference for the people of Labray because I know what it is, I've experienced it, I've suffered it, and that suffering must come to an end under this UNC government. It will come to an end.
Let's speak about the candidate whom you're going up against, Randall Mitchell, Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture. Now, it seems to be mixed reactions to his candidacy for Labray, as there have been with you. But nevertheless, he's been a face in active politics for the last 10 years. It's still going to be a challenge.
So let me just indicate, Keaton, I'm not going to engage in any dirty politics and mudslinging and attacking Minister Mitchell. Because you see, yes, there are good people in the PNM, but PNM is not good for the people. So I want to make that point. So I am not here to attack Randall Mitchell. That is not my purpose here. My purpose here is to tell the people of Labray that I am the best choice. Now, Randall Mitchell has been in active politics for, I came in a few days ago, right? He has been here a few years. And maybe his stake in Labray is that he would have grown up in a place called Beach Camp in Palo Seco. Now, that was a posh area. If you know Beach Camp and what it was in Palo Seco, that was a posh area. Anytime you're in Beach Camp, it means that you're well off. So he has always been well off. So if you compare his experience to mine, it's chalk and cheese. If you compare what he has been involved in politics to mine, chalk and cheese. But if you compare the passion to serve people and to make a difference, and if you compare the person could connect with, because they actually identify with the suffering of the people, between Mr. Mitchell and myself, I can tell you he cannot compete with me, because he has not been in a position to experience hardship the way I have, and the way the people of Labrie has been experiencing for quite a long time under the PNM's watch. So I wish Randall Mitchell, in terms of his health, in terms of him as a person, all the best. In terms of his candidacy, I do not wish him all the best. I hope and pray that the people of Labrie will come out and they will compare Randall Mitchell and Clyde Elder, and they will see at the end of the day, when you look at Clyde Elder and his struggles, you look at his fight, you look at his passion, you look at his service to the people, and you compare that to Randall Mitchell's Minister of Tourism. He wants to be the candidate for Labrie. As the Minister of Tourism, has he brought any tourist activity or tourism activity to Labrie? Labrie has forests, natural reserve. They have the Pitch Lake. Have they developed the Pitch Lake to the point where it could actively engage in bringing in resources for tourism? Yes, there are some guides and things when you go Labrie, but it can be in the Pitch Lake, that is, but so much more can be done. Now, has he done that with his power and position in the PNM? The short answer is no, he has not. Has Clyde Elder shown the people that they could depend on him, that they could look to him to fight, and fight with vigor and fight with power? Yes, I've done that. So compare Randall Mitchell to mine in terms of service to the people, and it's chalk and cheese. Mine is way better.
Well, it's up to the constituents of Labrie to decide that. So, Mr. Elder, I mean, congratulations on your candidacy. All the very best in the campaign ahead. And of course, we continue to follow, look forward to any updates on the part of yourself and your campaign. So all the very best to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. It's nice being here with you, albeit in a different capacity. I look forward to having more interviews like this. And I just want to urge the people of this country, not just Labrie, that we need change, and that change is with the United National Congress.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning on the program. All the very best, Mr. Elder. Take care.
Thank you. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, this interview follows the interview yesterday that we had with the People's National Movement candidate for Kamuzu Manzanilla, Sanjeev Buru. We are hoping that we can welcome all the faces, in fact, all the new faces to, well, in a different capacity to the general elections campaign that lays ahead. And of course, we'll continue to try and do such here on AM Prime. But of course, all the very best to Mr. Elder, and we thank him for his time this morning, and all the best to himself, Mr. Buru, and all these candidates heading into the general election. So we will continue to seek and have those conversations, and you can look forward to that happening on this platform. For now, let's take a break on the program. There's lots more to get into this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of at a stalemate.
You'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
Because vision doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement. If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us this morning as we continue our conversations leading up to the general elections 2025. We're hoping to have a series of conversations that focuses on the race for the Red House. This morning, we start those conversations by welcoming back rather for the first time this year, Chris was saying. Chris, good morning. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning, Adri. Of course, good morning to everyone in studio. Good morning, Trinidad. Good morning, Tobago. I know Adri is here, so we can't say Trinidad and we have to, be very specific as well. I am very happy to be here this morning and I'm looking forward to the conversation. I love the entitled or the title for this, the race for the Red House. So I'm looking forward to this morning. How have you been?
Wonderful. Not always completely running out of things to speak about, but at the same time wondering if we're going around in circles in some instances. But yeah, doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, as you mentioned, Aji Alain is with us, gentleman who joins us this morning. And let me be the first to say congratulations to you, Aji Alain, for being across in the sister Isle of Trinidad. Welcome,
Thank you very much.
to stress and headache as compared to the niceties of the beautiful sister Isle of Tobago.
No, well, but I will say that, I mean, over the time I've been here so far, I find Trinidad has been very sweet. Trinidad has been very beautiful to me. I've been enjoying the experience. I think I need to spend more time here. I would often invite you guys over to Tobago, but I need to come a little more often. I mean, I'm looking forward to the conversation as well. I know that has been happening in this space. And as I would have said earlier in the year, let's listen not just to what is being said, but what is not being said.
Well, I will tell you, yes, you have invited us. You've invited Chris and I many a times to the island of Tobago. Unfortunately, we have not made it, but thank you very much for making that trip to Trinidad and really putting Chris and I in a position now where we might have no choice but to fly across to Tobago very soon. No complaints there, by the way. But gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. There is a lot that has transpired since we last met last year to have a discussion, and we can't get into absolutely everything. So let's try and focus more so on the political parties and their preparations for the general elections 2025. The first point that I think should be noted, People's National Movement have actually put up a list of 40 candidates to contest the elections. I think it's just one more that they are screening for, which is the constituency of Tamakit. The United National Congress, and correct me if I'm wrong here, gentlemen, I think it's 8 candidates that they have announced thus far. So there is a stretch. The PNM seem to be forging ahead in relation to the release of candidates. Chris, let me start with you and ask you. You think that's something that's deliberate with the United National Congress, or waiting to see exactly who the PNM are presenting before deciding on who's the best individuals to challenge any PNM seats in the upcoming general election?
Well, the purpose of any political organization or any political player in any election is to be able to win an election. Of course, the PNM has the advantage in being the incumbent government for the past decade, you can say at this point. The UNC being the official opposition party, at least here in Trinidad, should, I think by now, should have been able to announce there are 39 candidates. And the reason I say so is you have been in opposition for 10 years. You have been on that side of the house for 10 years. You know or assume or position yourself to know all of the issues within the country. And so when we spoke earlier, the UNC has to focus on multiplication and addition in politics. And they must focus on bringing everyone in, all the opposition forces, in order to defeat the PNM if that is their political goal. I think announcing that small figure right now, I don't know what is the strategy. I genuinely don't know. Do I think it's a good strategy? I don't think so so far. That's my opinion. I would have liked to see more persons. Interestingly, some of the safe seats within the UNC they have not announced. You have the factor of the persons who ran on in the internal national executive election who would have ran under the banner of the United Patriots. That's a surrounding factor. Will they retain their seats or will they not? Or will the political leader run them out straight until the nomination day and then maybe try to position someone else the night before?
Well, I tell you what, though, it's interesting you say that because Jack Warner, and I don't know exactly what Jack Warner's role is right now in respect to the United National Congress and the election campaign, but he was quite vocal in saying that he wants the UNC, and this is about 32, he wants the UNC to announce more candidates. And he says the only party that can make the UNC lose the next election is the UNC. I mean, this is coming from Jack Warner, who just a year or so ago was shaking hands and holding hands once more with Cameron, speaking about working with the party and even wanting to represent the party in a general election. So it's interesting your point, what you've stated, and how it kind of aligns with Jack Warner's point. But Ajay, what are your thoughts in relation to the candidates thus far that have been presented by the United National Congress and by the People's National Movement?
I think firstly, the decision to announce almost a full slate by the PNM is an indication that an election is very, very close. And to me, it appears closer than we might think. I think the UNC is naturally on the back foot. Yes, it's their election to lose based on the current political climate. But I think there seems to be a sense of timidity coming out of the camp UNC. There seems to be a level of, I'm not sure, we're fearful or we're testing the waters kind of, like we're dipping with toes into the water. And I think that is what creating some discomfort among Trinbagonians as a whole. Even though we know Tobago usually don't have much influence or input as it pertains to the UNC operation, I can tell you that we are paying keen attention to what takes place in Trinidad currently. And it's not looking too well for the UNC currently.
Why do you say that?
I think because, yes, it's their election to lose. However, the PNM has always been modeled as a stable political organization, as a structured organization, as an organization that has discipline, as an organization where they might have their internal issues, but they have that ability to come together for an election. They have an election machinery that is second to none. I mean, they will pull together just to win an election. And I don't think at this time the members of the UNC is showing that level of unity, even though, like, I have my personal favorites among them. Unfortunately, they have been labeled as dissidents, but I think that level of unity needs to happen. And if the dissidents are the best candidates, I think they need to be selected as soon as possible. I think that will put the UNC in a better stance.
Now, we're going to come back to the United National Congress just a bit later on, and we're going to focus a bit on Tobago as well, because the TPP is to field two candidates for the election. I know one has been announced for Tobago East in David Thomas, but before we get into that, let's focus on the PNM for a bit, because as Ajay said, and I would agree with him that their election machinery is second to none. It's quite outstanding, and you give PNM credit for that. But with that being said, do you think, Ajay, coming back to you, do you think that the People's National Movement has been able to navigate the succession of Dr. Keith Rowley, Stuart Young in a successful manner? Do you think they've been able to keep the bad publicity away that was initially associated with the transition and what was taking place within that party to now show that we are united, we are a full force, and we are rolling full steam ahead?
I don't think they have executed that the way they would like. I think they have made several valiant attempts at it. But the population still seems a bit uncomfortable simply because of the process that was taken. I believe if there was an internal PNM election and Mr. Young would have won via the one-man, one-vote system that they would have implemented, I think that would have augured well. But it seems to be a father to son transfer. It seems to be because I am King Daddy or I am the ruler, I could pass down the crown on to my son or to my heir, and it creates that level of autocracy. It creates a feel that this is not a democratic country but a kingdom, and I think we still have to navigate that space. I don't think a lot of the population has already bought into Minister Young due to some of his personal interactions with the public. And we now operate in the age of social media, so everything is recorded, everything is online. And the shoots and walk off on a member of the media, that is going to resurface. And the population of Trinidad and Tobago are going to remember those types of moments. And the similarities with him and the current political leader, who we know is not a favorite, is known for being pretty aggressive and pretty abrasive. And I don't think that augurs well for him going forward.
Chris, what is your position on what RG would have just presented in respect to his response?
Well, I agree with much of what Ajay said, that, well, first of all, democracy is messy. So I'm not completely surprised. But given that we found out, the information that we have is that within that meeting that they had, that retreat meeting, it would have been 11-9. And for the PNM being the organization that is, persons view it as washing your linens in public, which I view as democracy. I don't view that as in a negative way. I think that there would have been signs of personality. I don't want it to sound as though this is an endorsement for Stuart Young, because this is not an endorsement for anybody. It's also not a condemnation of anybody. But what the PNM would have done is they shone a light on the next generation of leaders. So now, as a country, to new voters, to younger voters, to voters who will continue within the process, to swing voters, they have someone. And I remembered, Keaton, the first time I was on your show, I spoke specifically about the political product being Dr. Rowley and Mrs. Pasabi Sasa for a decade. I spoke about with you the dwindling voter turnout. And so here you have someone who seems to be a bit different, at least at face value, at least at age value, in terms of communication, in terms of perspective. So far, he has spoken about a few things that's a bit different to the conversation which we have been having for the past 10 years. What will be interesting, and by the way, dare I say Mr. Farley led the way on this this new generation of leaders that perhaps forced at least the major political organization to put forward someone in attempt to match him. I don't know, maybe it's interesting to me that you have a young group of persons over in Tobago who won in an overwhelming way, and now you're having, no pun intended, a young prime minister. So it forces now the UNC, and I'm looking over at the UNC because, again, it's an election and it's competition. I'm looking over at the UNC to see, so who are your persons? Who is your next generation of leaders? And from what I'm seeing, I don't know if I'm that impressed right now. And I don't know if the population will be that impressed at the way you treat some of your members who engaged in a democratic process.
The thing is, how does Stuart Young now separate himself? How does he present himself as Stuart Young, future Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? I mean, it's inevitable, let's be honest, but how does he now present himself as the new leader and the one that is going to take the PNM forward and lead the PNM in the next general election, and separate that from being Keith Rowley, Dr. Keith Rowley's right-hand man, or the successor to Dr. Keith Rowley? It is something that he is going to have to navigate, given the history and given what has been said and presented over the last, well, 9 years. Ajay, your thoughts?
I think he has a real task on his hands as it pertains to that, because he's already seen as the minister of everything. He's already seen as the prime minister's go-to. But I want to add a dynamic to something Chris also mentioned, because we saw the emergence of Carrie Marcel as a candidate as well. And that is going to have an impact on the youth voters, not just in Laventille, but across the political landscape. Because as a young person, I saw that move as being very admirable. I saw it as something I could possibly attain. So there's an impact as well. We need to consider the Carrie Marcel factor going into that next PNM election. But I think Minister Young has a task. Minister Young has to know, we know how to see more of his personality. We now have to see a resurgence of the current Prime Minister. I mean, to see Young take charge or take leadership as soon as possible. Because I think what we need to now know is figure out who is this minister, what is his personality like, how do he interact with the younger generation. We need to see a lot more of him in my perspective.
No, not to digress too much. You said that the cream Marcel factor. Enlighten me exactly what is the Kareem Marcel factor in the sense that this is a gentleman who has been given Larentil West. It's a seat that the People's National Movement has never lost. So exactly what is the Kareem Marcel factor?
I think a number of youth voters or young persons across Trinidad and Tobago is concerned that he was given an opportunity. I mean, we know his story, we know his journey, and I think that is going to be playing on the minds of a number of young Trinbagonians as well. Because PNM is an organization where you have to grow into. You have to comply and go to a particular set order. And to see a young man who basically has been around for a while, but it's kind of like a dark horse, a kind of come from behind type of move. And to see him take over from the Fitzgerald Hines, the Minister of National Security, I mean, it really had an impact on the minds of a lot of young Tibetans who have spoken with, as well as nationally. To see a young professional, nice or traumatic story and see that shape and then take over from a stalwart, a PNM stalwart, as Fitzgerald Hines, a person who the nation has been calling for his removal for a number of years and has not been removed because of the weight that he carries politically and probably financially, we don't know, it's alleged. And to see that transition take place into Caribbean, even though they had challenges over it, and to see the younger members in that area saying, we want a young leader, we want a young man who has new ideas and new visions, I think it's going to play into the PNM's messaging going forward. It gives me a MP Shampa Kojo, to be very honest with you.
Well, does Hans de Veens also hold that factor? Does he also have that appeal that you're speaking of? Using the logic that you put forward, he's taking over from Dr. Keith Rowley. He's taking over from a PNM store. He's taking over from the Prime Minister, from the political leader of the party in his constituency. Does Hans de Veens also have that factor? Chris, I'll come to you with that.
So for me, I do think that there will be something new that they will bring to the election. I don't know if it is good. I don't know if it's bad. I assume it would be more on the good side, however. The reason I say so, again, we have had the same political product for the past 10 years. We have seen the voter turnout. We have seen it dwindled. Last local government election, usually a low voter turnout, not that low, 30.34%. And so having someone like Kareem step into the political space, what that allows for is a little more excitement in the conversation. And more persons may be interested, and you want to get more persons interested in the political process and product. I think that is what he would allow. I think Kareem has been extremely popular on social media. I think he has been extremely outspoken. I think he's an affable person. And it's going to be interesting to see what he brings to this space, because it makes no sense in taking up an advocate role and conducting yourself in a kind of politics which we have lost confidence in through the voter turnout. We have seen confidently and consistently and consecutively for the past 10 years, the voters in this country has lost confidence in the matured type of politics. So I'm looking at him for new politics. In terms of Vance, I mean, it's interesting to me how he got this seat. You know, you had an endorsement, you had a little bit of controversy surrounding it, as would happen with many political organizations. I expect better from the PNM, though. I expect better from the PNM. My choice may have been a bit different. You know, I saw some other persons who would have filed and withdrew, and you know, I saw a former senator. I was sort of rooting for some other persons, but the reality is the screening committee, they made their decision, and so Hans is the guy for Diego Martin West. It's going to be interesting to see what he brings to this space so far. It would be premature of me to judge them here and now, because I'll only be judging them maybe based on the screening committee and their track record. And there isn't much that I know coming out of the screening committee, and there isn't much I know about some of these young men.
I would tell you that it would be premature for any of us at this stage of an election to judge any of these new faces coming out from either party or any party involved. Um, I will agree that it is quite exciting to see more young people being given a chance for the position. I am very, very keen and very, very interested to see what the campaign holds. And yes, they have to push the party's position, but I want to see how they're going to bring something different as young people and new faces to the parties involved. So I await to see. I will pass judgment on the campaign trail, not necessarily right now. At this point, I would agree that there's a level of excitement, but I'm still wanting to see if this experiment works. Do they, as young people, separate themselves from the PNM in terms of the past and push forward towards the future, or is there still a position of which they will have to continue to push no matter what? But before we move on to the United National Congress, gentlemen, you mentioned Kareem Marcel and Hansi Beans this morning. Well, I mentioned Hansi Beans actually, and then you guys added to the conversation. Any candidates other than those two gentlemen from the People's National Movement which excite you? Any other candidates that you have kept your eyes on and wanting to see more, hoping to hear from them quite soon? Ajay?
I don't think so, no. But I just want to add, though, as we was on the hands factor, remember what was attempted with JW in Sabah area.
Yes,
So
yeah.
let's at least have that in mind going forward. But I haven't seen, to be very honest, too much exciting candidates in my view coming out of the PNM camp. I mean, as usual, we know MP Kojo generally is one of the more challenging individuals when it comes to an election. She is one of the better or one of the best ministers, quote unquote, in spite of the challenges and so on. I know Tobago West is going to be extremely interested.
I wonder what Ajay is hinting at. Chris.
So,
Thoughts?
so as much as the PNM would have put forward younger and a few new persons like the persons we mentioned this morning, it is also good to see some persons return. So I'm happy to see that incumbent Mr. Shamfa Kojo Lewis would have returned. I think she's going to excite again the political discourse and platform. I am really excited to see what Marvin Gonzalez. This would be his second run at the seat. I think it's under a new name as well. So it's going to be, I'm excited to hear from him. I know he's an extremely hard worker as a minister. Also, my MP, the MP for San Fernando West, it's going to be very interesting. He's another one that is well liked within the political space and public space, extremely affable. It's good to see that Dr. Nyan Gadsby Dolly has returned, Penelope Beckles. What I'm noticing, and no matter what you hear behind the scenes within the People's National Movement, they understand the political value of their players. And so regardless of whatever internal disagreements that they would have had, because these organizations will always have disagreements, they know exactly the right path forward is everyone must come together and everyone must have a fair chance. And so these persons had a fair chance at the screening process, and I'm happy to see that some of them not only survive but will politically thrive.
When Shamfa Kojo Lewis first entered the political arena, I will admit I was not excited at all. I have to admit I really was not excited. Um, in fact, I didn't know how to feel, to be honest with you. But admittedly, she has grown and matured into someone who I actually look forward to participating in conversations or debates with.
Let me say this, and the growth of Shamfa Kojo should be studied. When you look at her political growth, I mean, who she is today is not exactly who she entered as. And it has been great to see her grow, and she's still extremely relatively young. Another person I would also add, and I reflect again on the UNC, is Mrs. Anita Haynes Allen. When we met Anita in the Senate, when we met Anita as the public
It was as though
relation.
she was almost afraid to speak at times.
Yeah, you met
Yeah.
this more timid person who always had an opinion, a good opinion, a researched opinion. And today she has honed in not only on her public speaking style, but her political hostility, the way she conducted herself in the recent internal elections process. I think is something that should be studied for anyone interested in internal elections. Her communication was a class.
Still is actually. Shamful Cujo Lewis, though, coming back to that point, very mature, quite friendly, has really grown into and been molded into quite a politician whom I say I would like to see more like that, where initially you don't know how to feel, but they prove you wrong. I like that. That's how I was, and that's exactly what happened with Shamful Cujo Lewis. Let me move on now to the conversation and given the time. Because we started the conversation speaking about the UNC. There's not much to report on the UNC, not much apart from the coalition of interest.
Is it?
Gentlemen,
Is it?
I don't know if you have any. That's my opinion. That is my opinion. I mean, I do this show every single day. I haven't been on for the better part of 2 weeks, but not much for me to report on, even when I missed that week and a half. But I'll give you the opportunity to comment, Chris, if you'd like to, and then we'll come to you, Ajay.
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, the UNC has to be playing addition and multiplication politics and not division. And so much of the country would have looked on to see what happened internally in the UNC. And I'm a talker and I speak with many people. And so when I have conversations with a number of young persons, I'm at work, wherever I'm in the grocery, the mall, whatever I'm doing, and the political conversation comes up, you hear, well, Parry and the Patriots, and they fought Kamla. And I'm like, no, that never happened. The election was that, and I want to make it elusively clear here this morning for some persons who don't know. The recent internal election within the United National Congress was that of national executive only, not political leader. Political leader actually is due this year. By the way, political leader of the United National Congress is actually due this year.
And
So
I
that
should stress the point that it should be held after the general election. But go on, Chris.
Well, we'll see what that is up to them and their executive and their party and the members, etc. But so the national executive would have included deputy political leader, come all the way down to your education officer and coordinators, etc. And so that is what the star team contested in against the United Patriots. Of course, you have persons who would have screened still coming out of the internal elections. Some of those persons include Rushton Parry for the seat of Mayaro. I would remind you, when the seat was Ottawa Mayaro, it was held by the PNM, and he has been able to not only successfully keep the numbers at a good place in Mayaro, so I think getting rid of him couldn't be an issue for the United National Congress, but also getting rid of him would tell the population that you cannot engage in a democratic process within the UNC. And if you do that, you are chastised. How you run your political organization is how you're going to run government. Your job is to prove to the country that you are capable enough to get into government. So you have the Rushton Parry, you have Anita Haynes Allen, who I think will impact the swing voters in San Fernando West. I can tell you in 2020, Anita Haynes Allen was a great asset to the UNC in many of its marginal constituencies, specifically in 2019, where she was seen walking everywhere. Everywhere she was walking in the country as PRO. And so you also have Kyle Taklal Singh, who I understand screens of Vancouver North. Kyle has been an attorney representing many matters all the way up to the Privy Council, winning some landmark cases. I know recently he would have won some stuff against the officer, made some challenges to the office of the AG. So you have these young people. Again, we speak a next generation of leaders, persons like Kyle, persons like Anita. I think they will continue to excite the political landscape. I think they will definitely play as a huge asset for the UNC. But if it is the UNC is committed to old rhetoric and loyalty to one person, then I think they're going to stay exactly where they are on which side of the house.
The way you said Kyle and the way you said Anita, it sounds as though you were a public relations officer for their campaigns there,
I
Chris.
should. I think they should. If they're looking on, they should hire me to do that. I do think that they should. And Mrs. Cujo Lewis, I think that she should as well.
So
Yes.
you see what I mean, right? From Kyle to Mrs. Cujo Lewis. Ajay, your thoughts. A lot has been said. Your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I want to concur with Chris in other areas, but I think right now the UNC is not impressive. And the PNM is going to get traction in that direction, even to Foster Cummings and the work he's doing at YDNS. So I think that YDNS factor and the way that whole ministry has been structured, they are going to attract youth vote. They are going to have that influence. And the only way you could counteract something like that is with somebody like Anita Haynes, who's going to come from an educational point, bring her facts, bring her research, bring her evidence. And we are now being able to say, yeah, well, this valid or not. So I think the UNC really has a lot of work to do nationally. And I think they need to start now. They need to change the approach. And this bacchanal politics, I mean, I know majority of the population are accustomed to it, but our generation, we're not into bacchanal politics. Let's discuss the issues. Let's hear what your positions are. And don't tell me who thief more than. Because we got automatically see everybody thieving basically. So what distinguishes your thief and what makes your thieving special? So let's treat with the issue and get away from the bacchanal politics. But we have to consider the Michaela Pandey factor as well. And that split vote in some of those areas, it might be small, but it could be critical.
I want to say something.
Hold on, two things. Yeah. One, that Ministry of Youth Development factor, 100% agree with you. Foster Cummings has created an army, right?
Yes.
He has created, and take your hats off to him. He has done excellently. Chris, I'm going to come to you because I know you have a point to make.
I want to say something quickly, very quickly. Interestingly, when the local government happened within the UNC, there's always this conversation of you all need to unite all these small parties, the third parties, etc. The conversation now that persons are saying, if you really listen to the general public, is if you get rid of this person, you will lose. If you get rid of that person. So the talent may actually exist within the organization, you know. It is within the hands of the executive, the current executive of the party, to harness the best talent and put forward the best product for brand UNC to position itself as credible.
Yeah, but what is brand UNC? That's the thing, Chris. That has not been defined. I mean, the opposition leader's response to the exit of Raya Agber was no one cares. I don't think, regardless of how bitter it is, that doesn't come from a leader.
Well, I would understand why she would think that way. One must remember that in 1991, she contested against the UNC under NAR. So maybe her political philosophy and ideology may be a bit different. But that aside, if you look again, and we have to go back to the internal elections because they are offerings, political offerings. You saw one team saying, well, this is our brand. And you have the other team saying this is what our brand could be. And so I was able to understand that these elections allow for a reset within the organization. But the elections are over. It's over. What we want to see now is the persons who have gotten the mandate. What do you do with that responsibility? And I think that is what many persons are looking on to see. We have seen in the PNM what they are doing with their responsibility. So what will the UNC do? And I want to agree with you, as you said earlier on, this is the election for the UNC to either win or also for them to lose. It is in their hands.
All right, I want to get to Tobago. Before I do, the second point I was going to make in response to Ajay, you spoke about the Michaela Pandey factor. Is that really a factor at this point? Because there's a lot happening in the UNC. You've got the coalition of interest with the unions. That's one. It seems as though they've got a de facto public relations officer, even though there's an elected or appointed public relations officer in Dr. Kirk Mayo, and that is Philip Edward Alexander. But that's happening in the party. That in itself gives me grey hairs. But is Michaela Pane really a factor in this general election? Ajay, can you justify your position?
I wouldn't count her out at all because we have seen, particularly in our state, elections get very close. And you could win and lose by a couple of hundred votes. So even if Michaela pulls 100 votes in an area, that could be the difference between our candidate winning or losing. Let's say she wins a couple polling divisions. That can have a big impact. These elections are going to be very close. I do not see, particularly in those marginal constituencies, I don't see a runaway person. I see it being neck and neck in some areas. And those key 200-300 votes, or in some cases it might be even as small as 50 or 25, or even one in some cases, I see this election being very, very, very tight.
I agree. I agree with Ajay. If you take the seat of Covenant, for example, the UNC current MP would candidate in 2020. I think he got around 12,000 votes. The PNM got around, I think maybe 6 or 7, or maybe 8. Of course, you had an outstanding, what was that? About maybe 7 or 8 persons not voting. I think Michaela Pandey, being a Pandey, can, if she were to run for Couva North, that was once her dad's seat, I think she would be able to rustle votes not only from the UNC, also from the PNM, and can excite persons who just generally have been uninterested for the past decade with the current political product. So I do agree with Audrey. I do think that Michaela will play a factor. I don't know if she'll win a seat or maybe multiple seats, but I do think she will create some sort of, I'm not going to use the word split vote because no vote belongs to anyone, but I do think she's going to be
but
extremely
at the same
competitive.
time, from what you just said and from what I've gathered from speaking to those within the public sphere, Michaela Pane running on the ticket of her name, and I know she is pushing the party. You get the updates via social media platforms. I'm hoping for a lot more. I've been wanting to see a lot more. I've been speaking vocally about it. Um, Speaking vocally, my apologies. See program this morning when you're so frustrated. But what I'm saying, gentlemen, is the fact that it's been it's been a bit frustrating that the campaign focuses more so on her name rather than what the individual themselves can bring or is planning to bring or is wanting to bring. So as much as I am not disagreeing with what you all are saying, I'm also a bit frustrated as an individual to say I can't vote for Michaela Pani because she's Bastille Pani's daughter. I want to, hear more about Michaela Pani as the individual, their plans for Transvago, and what it is that they are going to do, right? What are their plans and what they and I don't and the thing is what frustrates me, I don't want to hear the end result. I want to hear how you plan on getting there rather than just the end result, rather than this is what the end goal is. Pushing that aside for the moment, because we're running out of time, and I want to come to Tobago because the TPP has nominated David Thomas for Tobago East. I believe quite soon they are due to announce their candidate for Tobago West. And on top of all of this, in respect to the TPP, the opposition leader Kamla Pasabi-Sasa has stated that a coalition after the general election is a possibility. So let me come to you, Haji Alim, first could you report us exactly what it is you're hearing on the ground in Tobago in respect to the TPP candidates of David Thomas, and what people are speaking about in Tobago as it relates to the general elections as a whole?
Yeah, well, I think Mr. Thomas is going to have a serious impact in Tobago East. He has a track record of being a very outstanding fire officer. He led the fire service in Tobago for a number of years. And I mean, he single-handedly built this Cabo fire station, which to date has not been opened. Which to date, when you interact with fire officers in the Tobago space, they will tell you, Mr. Thomas beg all on sundry to get the fire station to where it is. And just to get the Ministry of National Security to give it some finishing touches, it has been problematic. I mean, he is an individual with an impeccable record, and I think from my perspective at this point, he seems to have the edge over Minister Webster Roy as it pertains to Tobago East. I think Mr. Thomas is fitting. Yes, I know the talk on the ground is he's an older guy, he has more experience, and he's not the newness that people have looked for from the Tobago People's Party. But sometimes they need to have these veterans around to hold the reins and to help us stay focused and remain guided, even as a people. So I think Mr. Thomas is a very, very serious factor in Tobago East. And I think if I was in Ayanna Webster Roy's position for today, I would have had to double up on some of my campaign strategy. I would have rethink my delivery because that is a serious factor. Tobago West, on the other hand, is pretty interesting because I'm of the view, because of the Shamfa Kojo Lewis factor again, there seems to be a level of reluctance for person wanting to challenge her. And I think that's probably why there seems to be a bit of delay as it pertains to candidates for Tobago West. However, I have faith in persons coming forward and putting themselves for representational politics. And let's see how it goes. I'm thinking, for me, Tobago West is going to be extremely interesting going forward. I know I made certain hints at the ending of last year into early of this year, putting into the Tobago East candidates. So probably if you go back to some of the programs, you may probably pick it up, but take what I'm telling you, Tobago West is going to be interesting. However, the incumbent has the upper hand going in currently.
Chris, would you like to add to that? Because yes, Ajay gave quite a number of prints before on previous editions of EM Prime. But Chris, would you like to add to that?
So, the People's National Movement's current members of Parliament for both Tobago East and West, they have played the game and been extremely politically savvy and very deliberate. I mean, you cannot criticize Mrs. Kojo Lewis or even Mrs. Ayanna Webster Roy in saying they are unapproachable, in saying that you dislike them, in saying that they do not work, they're lazy. Those are criticisms you cannot give them. But the criticisms that I anticipate that will come towards them is their allegiance and loyalty to party over Tobago. And it is going to be interesting to hear the conversation, a real conversation about autonomy. Because, and what I don't want to hear, and I'm just warning everybody, and, this is me, giving you a little warning from Trinidad. I do not want to hear any sort of discussion around, well, one side saying autonomy, one side saying secession. Nobody is speaking secession. So do not come to tell me that, because I believe the people of Tobago is quite intelligent enough, maybe sometimes a little more intelligent than us here, right, in the way they vote, that they will identify, well, no. This is just empty rhetoric. So I expect to hear good debate, and these are good debaters, and the Farley-led administration, they have been great debaters as well. So I expect to hear a good, robust debate discussing the vision for Tobago. Now, in terms of Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar and her wishful thinking for a post alliance, whatever, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything Mr. Farley has that to my knowledge, has not commented on that. I think that Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar needs to focus on her seats that she currently has. Maruga Tableland seems to be in some trouble, especially coming out of the last local government election. I think that is where her focus needs to be. I think her focus needs to be on trying to retain the talent she currently has. And but to look as far as Tobago and what will be and what may be, I think let Farley campaign on his own. Please leave him alone.
Keaton, allow me to jump in quickly here, right? And let's go back and do a little bit of history. I mean, I'm not a historian in no major way, but the political history of the track record of the PNM in Tobago is, once you are not PNM, you are aligned with the UNC, and it creates a certain type of response from Tobagonians. Because Tobago has changed hands so many times that once a community take takeover attitude, Tobagonians generally are reluctant. And then we remember what happens when we had the 12-0 or the red wash over Tobago a couple of years ago. We saw what the presence of Ms. Bissessar in Tobago can do, or the impact he can possibly have. So they usually tie anybody that's not PNM to the UNC, and they trumps up a kind of underlying tribal Tobago that they don't see. And they create the same Tobago Trinidad war that does not exist. They create it for their political benefit.
But RJ, what you are saying is the brand has been bad. You are saying that the brand is so bad that you can say they are UNC and persons reject them because of brand UNC. So you see, Keaton, how we come back to brand UNC being an issue. You see how we come back to it. That it could be used against you in a space where you not even participate.
But the history has created a problem in Tobago. Because I was always telling persons the UNC development that I've done in Tobago, it has not been well celebrated. When the airport moved from closing at 8 o'clock to 2 a.m., it was under UNC administration. Kamala Prasad, this is open this Scarborough General Hospital up at Signal Hill currently. But they don't celebrate those things. The gas station in Oxford, the new MP gas station in Oxford, is a Jack Warner's initiative. You see, but they have so wanted to seclude themselves from Tobago that Tobagonians no longer see the benefit that they brought to the island of Tobago. So I think they really need to sit down and figure out how they're going to be approaching it. One. Two, the position of our coalition is highly unlikely. I can tell you from my perspective, because we often see the nice, cordial side of Chief Secretary Augustine, but when he gets radical, when he gets firm, we usually say he's playing man and he's smelling himself and these types of statements, but it shows the type of individual. He is not going to sit down and accept foolishness for Tobago. We see what's happening currently with Minister Imbut and himself in Tobago. So he's not a walkover, and I don't want people to see our chief as a walkover. And Tobagonians are going to support him. The conversation of secession, however, every time you go to autonomy, this always happens. I mean, sorry if I get passionate, because I spent a number of months leading up to the last autonomy bill reading the history, reading Hansard, reading the statements that he would do. And they always trump up. Tobagonians don't know what they want. They want to secede. Let them go and take their way. They can't stand up on their own. They have no money. They don't contribute. And I mean, at this point, I am fed up of hearing these kinds of statements. If the PM intends to come with this argument in Tobago, I would advise them. There's TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp. Now we're going to recall, we're going to look for your statement. We're going to begin to do some research and dig into it. So do not come with this old, washed up, bleached out rhetoric. Don't try to re-dye these types of things anymore. We're going to go to where we know the information is factual. We're not going to be taking what comes off of your political platform.
And very quickly, as we on Tobago, when we discuss those Tobago bills specifically, in those bills, for some of the persons who don't know, it defines Tobago, but it never defined Trinidad in terms of what it was, 11 or 12 nautical miles. And they were able to, but you must be able to define Trinidad, because therefore the undefined means it's Trinidad's. That's what it suggests, right? That's what I think. That's what it suggests. When you look at when they speak about equality of status or equity of status, the services that are offered here in Trinidad, Tobagonians have to either come on a plane as a cost or come on a boat to just go to a few government services. So those are the things that Tobagonians are speaking about. And and I don't like it, and I hear it from in Trinidad a lot also, where, well, who Tobago feel there? Who they feel there? Most of the natural resources, right? Most of what we get in terms of oil and gas is in Tobago's waters. So they should be allowed to negotiate more, because even if you look at the THA's budget, most of their budget goes in recurrent expenditure, you know. So, and even when it comes to making more, if you want to say has a leeway in making certain laws, there are things of interest to Tobago that we wouldn't really have here. For example, if they would like to put a ban on skiing or something like that, because they have the coral reefs, they should be allowed to go to the THA and say, well, here's what, let us do so and so. So those are the conversations I want to hear. I'm not saying I'm advocating for this, you know. I am advocating for the debate to happen. I want to hear the perspectives from all sides. All sides.
I think even Trinidadians as well in my view are being short-circuited when it comes to Tobago and Tobago's autonomy. If you never travel to Tobago, I mean, I had an incident yesterday and I was so amazed. Met this guy for the first time, and I remember he was saying, he said, people that talk about the Tobago Trinidad band, he said the first time I've enjoyed Tobago is when I went to work. He said, and he spoke to a fisherman, had never had flying fish. He said the mistake I made was to tell this guy I've never had flying fish. He said I returned to the beach one day after, and there's a massive bag of flying fish he gave me to tell me go and cook and enjoy. So it does not exist. And I think because we're trumping up that kind of warish bacchanal, it only profits those in the political space. We are loving people, one. Two, I want Trinidadians themselves to do their own research. Go to Tobago for yourself. Ask the questions for yourself. You probably get bad vibes, ask what is the reason for the behavior. Why do you feel that way? I've been in stores in Tobago and see Trinidad and trying to intimidate Tobago and sales clerk. And in my mind, I'm like, Jets, it operates so. I have seen it happen.
I've witnessed that myself, actually. Yeah, I've witnessed that myself.
But Chetan and Ajay, don't you think this comes from the type of leaders we have? And I'm not saying it's Dr. Ollie or Kamla's fault. I'm saying in terms of the conversations which we lead. You know,
I think it stems from households, my friend, because
and there's
I'll tell
also
you
a
what.
culture we foster,
Yeah, because
not only politically, but as you say, within the community, your
if
house.
it came from our leaders, Chris, then my attitude might have been different. I've chosen to be differently because I see what is better and I know what is better.
Yeah.
You know, I can't always blame them. I have my choices to make as well. I have decisions to make independently. But gentlemen, this is where we're gonna have to end it. We are over time. And I want to thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. And yes, as I introduced it, I said this is a series of conversations, the race for the Red House. So it's a good start. It's quite an energetic start, and hopefully it remains that way going forward. But thank you very much for joining us on the program. I myself have never had flying fish, so it's probably something I need to try as well, Ajay. Yeah. But thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
Ajay, take care. Chris, thank you very much. Good seeing you guys, and take care. Keep well. All the best. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we end this morning's edition of AM Prime. Thank you very much to Chris Osain and Ajay Aline for being with us this morning as we focus on the general elections, the upcoming general elections. As Ajay would have mentioned at the beginning, the PNM putting forward these 48 candidates signals that a general election is quite possibly a lot nearer than we anticipate. So we certainly are keeping a close eye out on that. But at this point, from the conversation I gathered this morning, from the perspectives I've gathered, politics is chaos and democracy can be chaos. It can be chaos, but well, we're fortunate where we are in a position to have these conversations. All right, before we go, just a couple of things I want to note. I mean, in the last week and a half, I've learned a lot. Every day, I learn quite a lot, and I'm lucky, I'm fortunate. I think we all are if we get the opportunity to learn something new every day. Education is wonderful. I've learned about so many different things. But one thing I've known previously, and I'm just stressing, is the importance of having relationships with your neighbors and just how your neighbors can actually become part of your family and part of your life. This morning, I want to say a very special good morning to Sarah, to Chris, to Auntie Shireen, and to Uncle Seach, and to Chrissy. I just want to say a very special good morning to them. You know, they have really shown what having wonderful and good neighbors are all about. They've been absolutely amazing. And the family and the warmth and the hospitality is absolutely incredible on their part. And even though the circumstances are not of the best, having spent quite some time with them, I've enjoyed every moment of it. And need I say, what an absolutely wonderful family. So really, love, warmth, and blessings to them. One more mention I'd like to make this morning to Anushka, Robert, Avni, and Suri, and of course Milo and Buddy. What an absolute gem of a family. Wonderful people, absolutely loving people. And need I say, I'm privileged and fortunate to have met them, to spend some time with them, to meet them, to share conversations and moments with them. Truly wonderful people. And I'm very happy and appreciative that I get the opportunity to just meet these individuals and spend time with them. So to that family, thank you very much for absolutely everything. Again, love, warmth, and blessings to you. If you'd like to shout out anyone on AM Prime, if you'd like to wish them a happy birthday or just say thank you, reach out to us. We're more than happy to do that for you. You can contact us anytime, ladies and gentlemen. And we always enjoy the conversation. We always enjoy meeting new people and hearing from you, and we'd be more than happy to send out wishes or just a hello to those who may be watching. But from us at WESN Content Capital, thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime. From my team in Ryan Gomez Burke and Mile Wood and Elijah, we thank you very much for your continued hard work and dedication. Naomi McNish, of course, co-producing AM Prime, as well as co-hosting alongside Gina McLeod over the last week and a half. Thank you very much for that indeed. And Keaton Shaw reminding you today is a good day to have a good day and a great week ahead. We'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.